After studying this module, you shall be able to know what does the term personality disorder actually mean? What are the different types of personality disorder? What are the signs and symptoms of this disorder? What are the causes behind personality disorder? And about the effects and diagnosis of personality disorder. Personality disorder. In psychological context, personality is defined as the set of enduring behavioral and mental traits that distinguish human beings. Hence, in the simplest manner, personality disorder may be defined by experiences and behaviors that differ from standards and expectation of the social culture. Personality disorder is a type of mental disorder described by persistent maladaptive patterns of behavior, thought and inner experience shown across many perspectives and differing markedly from expected by the person society. It is a form of mental disorder in which the person attains a stiff and unhealthy array of thinking, functioning and behaving. This causes significant problems and limitations, especially in relationship and social encounters. That's why such persons face trouble in perceiving and relating to situations and to the peoples. In some cases, persons with such a disorder denies of accepting the fact that they are suffering from any kind of behavioral abnormality because the way of their thinking and behaving seems them to be natural. Patterns of personality disorder develop early. These usually begin in teenage years or early adulthood. Personality disorders are of various types. Some forms may become less noticeable in middle age.
Now, moving on to the history of personality disorder. Personality disorder is a term having a markedly modern meaning. The presently established meaning must be assumed in the context of historical changing classification systems such as DSM-4 and its prototypes. Theophrastus, the Greek philosopher, defined 29 character types that he noticed as deviances from the norms of society. This view lasted in the 18th century when experiments began to question the psychological concepts of character and self. During the 19th century, the term personality was explained as an individual's conscious awareness of his behavior, a condition of which could be related to altered states, for example, dissociation. Doctors in the beginning of 19th century started to recognize types of insanity that consisted of disturbed emotions and actions, however, apparently without major intellectual impairment, delusions, or hallucinations. James Cole Spreckart gave a similar theory and termed it as moral insanity. Moral, in this case, denoted affect, that is, emotion or mood. The German psychiatrist Koch wanted to make the concept of moral insanity a little more scientific and hence proposed in 1891 the phrase psychopathic inferiority, theorized to be a hereditary disorder. It referred to recurrent and firm patterns of transgression or dysfunction in the lack of obvious mental retardation or illness. During the 20th century, Emil Kraepelin, another German psychiatrist, incorporated a section on psychopathic inferiority in his prominent work. He proposed six types of personalities, namely excitable, eccentric, unstable, swindler, liar, and quarrelsome. David Henderson, a psychiatrist, published The Theory of Psychopathic States in 1939, which resulted in contributing to the term that became widely associated with antisocial behavior. Towards the mid of 20th century, psychoanalytic theories were given by Sigmund Freud and some others. This comprised the concept of character disorders, which were perceived as persistent problems related not to specific symptoms but to prevalent internal struggles or derailments of normal childhood development. Character disorders were usually assumed as weaknesses of character or willful deviation and were distinguished from neurosis to psychosis. The word borderline originated from the fact that some persons were lying on the edge of those two classes. American psychiatrists formally acknowledged the ideas of enduring personality disorders in 1950s in the first Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which relied greatly on psychoanalytic concepts. Sociopathic personality disorders, which used to be the term for psychopathy, was given a new name as antisocial personality disorder. Next, I will be telling you about the classification of personality disorders. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, at present DSM-5, provides a definition of a general personality disorder, which states that mental disorders are a continuing and fixed pattern of elongated period that leads to major distress or impairment and are not due to use of substances or another medical condition. DSM-5 lists 10 personality disorders assembled into three clusters, which are as follows. Cluster A, or odd disorders. Under Cluster A, first is paranoid personality disorder. People suffering from paranoid personality disorder are described by having credible disbelief and suspiciousness for others, which may last for a long time. Such people mistreat others and are generally defensive. Individuals with paranoid personality disorder are hypervigilant to the motives of others to weaken or do harm and always look for confirmatory proof of secret schemes. Next is schizoid personality disorder. People with schizoid personality disorder are apathetic, that is, they lack interest and feel detached from social relationships. Such people prefer to live in remote, solitary, and distant surroundings. They neither desire nor need human attachments. It affects more males than females. Next, moving on to schizotypal personality disorder. Persons having schizotypal personality disorder are frequently termed as odd or peculiar and generally have little, if any, close relationships. Individuals usually don't understand how relationships form and the effect of their behavior on others. They are self estranged, exhibit odd mannerisms and behaviors, think that they can read opinion of others. Such people are preoccupied with odd daydreams and beliefs and have a very blurred line between reality and fantasy. Next is cluster B, that is consisting of emotional, traumatic, or erratic disorders. Under cluster B, we have antisocial personality disorder. People with antisocial personality disorder depict a long pattern of disrespect for other individuals' rights. They often cross the line and violates those rights. Such people generally act without due consideration and have a tendency of disrespect for societal customs, rules, and standards, and are impulsive, irresponsible, deviant, and unruly. Next is borderline personality disorder. Individuals suffering from borderline personality disorder generally show a believable form of insecurity in personal relationships. They are generally unpredictable, manipulative, and unstable, experience rapidly fluctuating moods, and shifts rapidly between loving and hating. Now, moving on to histrionic personality disorder. Such people display the nature of attention seeking behavior and excessive emotions. They overreact to insignificant events and are generally exhibitionistic to seek attention and favors. Individuals' tendency to overdramatize may impair relationships. Next, moving on to narcissist personality disorder. It is defined as a type of mental disorder wherein individuals have an exaggerated feeling of their own importance and deeply need appreciation. Individuals having narcissist personality disorder think that they are better than others and have little concern for others' feelings. They remain preoccupied with fantasies of success, beauty, or achievement. Next, moving on to cluster C or anxious or fearful disorders. Under cluster C, we have avoidant personality disorder. People suffering from this disorder are plagued by constant performance anxiety, perceive self as hopeless, low grade, or unappealing. Individuals with this disorder experience a long standing sense of insufficiency and are very thoughtful of what others consider about them. They become quite nervous in social situations owing to fear of denial. Next, moving on to dependent personality disorder. People with dependent personality disorder look constantly for the need for a person to be taken care of and suffers from the fright of being abandoned or parted from important persons in their lifetime. They have a feeling of helplessness, being incompetent, submissive, and immature, and perceive self as weak or flimsy. Next is obsessive compulsive personality disorder. First of all, it might not be misunderstood as obsessive compulsive disorder, which is an anxiety disorder. This disorder is described by firm behavior, perfectionism, conformity to rules, and control. People with obsessive compulsive personality disorder maintain a rule bound lifestyle and remain adhere closely to social conventions. Next, moving on to severity. The symptoms of personality disorder need not to be remain confined to a single cluster and can range from mild form of symptoms to a full-blown symptomatic attack. Dimensional system of classifying personality disorder includes both the theory of personality disorder as a measure of subthreshold scores for personality disorder by means of standard interviews. In addition to simple personality disorder and personality difficulty, it also acquires complex or diffuse personality disorder, where groups of two or more personality disorder are present. And lastly, the severe personality disorder, which involves greatest risk. Next is a table regarding the dimensional system of classifying personality disorder, where the level of severity ranges from 0 to 4 and has various descriptions for various levels of severity and the definition by the categorical system. Now, moving on to the signs and symptoms of personality disorder. Types of personality disorders have been assembled into three clusters centered on similarity between characteristics and symptoms. Many persons with a single personality disorder may also show signs and symptoms of, however, one other personality disorder. First is Cluster A personality disorders. Cluster A consists of schizoid, paranoid, and schizotypal personality disorder. Cluster A is described by odd, peculiar thinking or behavior, but it is not essential to show all the signs and symptoms enumerated for a disorder to be diagnosed. First is paranoid personality disorder, persistent distrust and doubt in others and about their intentions, unjustified suspicion of the loyalty or trustworthiness of others, hesitant in trusting others due to unreasonable fear that anyone can use the information against them, angry or hostile reaction to perceived slights or insults, unjustified continuing distrust that other half or sexual partner is disloyal, perception of innocent remarks on non-threatening situations as personal insults or attacks. Next, moving on to schizoid personality disorder, dearth of attention in social or personal relationships, desiring to be unaided, narrow range of emotional appearance, being cold or indifferent to others, and lastly, incompetent to take liking in most activities. Next is schizotypal personality disorder, flat feelings or unsuitable emotional reactions, indifferent, unsuitable, or doubtful response to others, social concern, and a lack of or uneasiness with close relationships, magical thinking, believing they can inspire persons and occasions with their opinions. Now, we will study about cluster B personality disorders. Cluster B personality disorders consist of antisocial, histrionic, narcissist, and borderline personality disorder. Cluster B is characterized by melodramatic, being too emotional, unpredictable thinking, or impulsive behavior, but it is not compulsory that the individual will exhibit all the signs and symptoms enumerated for a disorder to be detected. Under cluster B, first we have antisocial personality disorder. Under this category, we have disrespect for feelings and needs of others, instantly untruthful, thieving, etc. Constantly careless, frequent problems with the rule, repetitive violation of others' rights, disrespect for the security of self or others, and unwary behavior. Now, moving on to borderline personality disorder. Ongoing feelings of emptiness, temperamental, frequently as a reaction to interpersonal tension, suicidal in nature or bullying of self injury, extreme fear of being unaided or abandoned, recurrent, extreme show of annoyance, and lastly, stress related obsession that comes and goes. Now, moving on to histrionic personality disorder. Constantly wants attention, extremely emotional and dramatic, easily influenced by others, extremely concerned with bodily appearance, shallow and quickly changes emotions. And lastly is the narcissist personality disorder. Dreams about authority, achievement, and attractiveness, failure to identify needs and feelings of others, overconfidence, expects of constant praise and appreciation, exaggerates of accomplishments or talents. Now, moving on to cluster C personality disorders. Cluster C personality disorders consist of dependent, obsessive-compulsive, and avoidant personality disorder. Characteristics of cluster C are being anxious, awful thinking, or behavior, but